Greetings, cosmic travelers. Welcome to the channel where humanity's darkest ingenuity and brightest defiance collide. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which city you're tuning in from. We love hearing how far our human, and maybe even alien, audience spans. Now, strap in. Today's tale isn't just about war. It's about the line between survival and sin, and the horrifying weapon only humans could dream up. The battlefield was silent. Not the quiet of peace, but the stillness of dread. On the ash-grey plains of Kelshar, where the sky burned crimson from twin suns, humanity's 117th Legion faced the Cathari Dominion, a coalition of alien empires united by one belief: that humans were too dangerous to exist. The Cathari were sleek, their bodies shimmering with bioluminescent scales, their minds networked like a hive. They did not fear death. They feared forgetting. And that day, they learned to fear us. Sergeant Mara Vera crouched in the ruins of a collapsed bunker, her fingers trembling around the device. It was small, unassuming, silver cylinder etched with circuitry that glowed faintly blue. The squad called it the blank slate. Command had issued it with no explanation, only orders. Activate when surrounded. Do not let it fall into enemy hands. Around her, the surviving members of her unit fired desperately into the advancing Cathari lines. Plasma bolts scorched the air. A rookie named Jax screamed as a Cathari energy blade severed his arm. They were losing. Mara closed her eyes and pressed the button. The effect was instant. A pulse rippled outward, silent and invisible. Cathari soldiers froze mid-stride. Their luminous eyes flickered, then dimmed. They dropped their weapons, clutching their skulls, emitting guttural, panicked clicks. One turned to Mara, its voice a broken warble. What? What are we doing here? Who are you?" The humans stared. The Cathari weren't attacking. They weren't even remembering. The pulse had erased the last 6 hours of their minds, including the battle, their orders, even their own names. Mara's squad regrouped, stunned. "This isn't a weapon," muttered Corporal Wren, kicking a discarded Cathari rifle. It's evil." But the true horror came later. When the Cathari High Command learned of the attack, their response wasn't rage. It was revulsion. Galactic law forbade memory alteration, a war crime so unthinkable no species had dared codify it until now. The Cathari broadcast a message galaxy-wide, their voices trembling with a mix of fury and terror. Humans have weaponized oblivion. They do not just kill, they unmake. How do you wage war against an enemy who can erase your will to fight? The galactic community erupted. Human diplomats were expelled from council chambers. Allied species severed treaties, their representatives hissing. Even the void drinkers of Xylath never sank to this. But humanity's leaders remained silent, because they knew a secret. The blank slate wasn't ours, not originally. 3 years earlier, a derelict alien vessel had crash-landed in the Nevada desert. Its tech was unlike anything seen before. Organic machinery fused with neural interfaces. Scientists discovered its purpose: memory suppression, but not random erasure. Targeted. Specific memories could be altered, deleted, or replaced. The UN buried the discovery, fearing panic. After all, why would aliens need such a tool? Then the Cathari invaded. They struck without warning, glassing cities, demanding humanity's surrender. But their tactics were inconsistent. They bypassed military targets to destroy museums, shattered data archives, burned libraries. At first, it seemed like cultural annihilation, until a linguist noticed something. Every destroyed site held records of humanity's early spaceflights, century-old missions to Alpha Centauri, lunar colonies, even the Voyager probes. The Cathari weren't erasing our future. They were erasing our past. And suddenly, the alien memory tech made sense. Humanity reverse-engineered the device, creating the blank slate. But we weaponized it differently. The Cathari had used it to suppress, to control. We turned it into a scalpel, a way to make enemies forget their purpose, yes, but also a message. You tried to bury our history. Now, well, bury your resolve. Back on Kelshar, Mara's squad retreated, the Cathari too disoriented to pursue. As night fell, she examined the blank slate, its glow reflecting in her eyes. A crackle on her comms. Command's voice. Sergeant, new orders. Advance to the Cathari relay station. Use the device again. Erase everything. She paused. Sir, what's in the station? A long silence. Intel suggests it's how they've been editing their own memories. To forget the wars they've started. The atrocities. Mara's blood went cold. The Cathari hadn't just stolen our past. They had been practicing on themselves. The relay station loomed like a blackened tooth against Kelshar's bleeding sky. Sergeant Mara Vera moved through the ash, her squad flanking her in grim silence. The blank slate weighed heavy in her grip. Ahead, the Cathari structure pulsed with faint bioluminescent veins. A living machine, breathing, thinking. Command's orders echoed in her skull. Erase everything. But the closer she got, the louder the question screamed. What are we really destroying? Inside, the walls throbbed. Organic cables snaked across the floor, glowing with data. Cathari tech wasn't built. It was grown. Private Rook, the squad's tech specialist, knelt to scan a terminal. This isn't just a relay, he muttered. It's an archive. These nodes, they're memory banks, like a hive's shared consciousness. A flicker of movement. Mara spun, rifle raised. A Cathari scientist crouched in the shadows, its scales dulled by age. It didn't attack, didn't even hiss. Instead, it gestured weakly to a hologram flickering above the terminal. A star map, marked with dates. Human dates. 1969, 1977, 2024. The voyages of Apollo, the launch of Voyager, the first Mars colony. You recognize these, Mara said, lowering her weapon. The scientist nodded, its voice a rasping hum. We tried to bury them, just as we buried our own. The hologram shifted. New images. A Cathari fleet glassing a planet. Cities melted to sludge. Children's bodies piled like cordwood. The scientist trembled. 2 centuries ago, we discovered your probes. Your messages of peace. We saw ourselves in you. Ambition, curiosity, violence. We feared what you might become, so we decided to erase you. But first, we erased us. Mara's breath caught. The Cathari hadn't just suppressed humanity's history. They'd deleted their own atrocities, scrubbed their collective guilt. This station wasn't a weapon. It was a confessional. Rook cursed. Command knew. They had to. Why else send us here with the blank slate? A cold realization settled over Mara. Humanity's leaders hadn't just reverse-engineered the memory tech. They had turned it into a mirror. Show the galaxy the Catharist's sins. Make them remember the monsters they tried to forget. But there was a problem. The Cathari weren't the only ones who'd buried their past. The scientist touched a node. The hologram dissolved into static, then resolved into new footage. Human warships bombing a neutral colony. Hostages executed, prisoners tortured. Mara's stomach lurched. That's from the Europa uprising. The UN denied. You think only we edit history? The scientist hissed. Your leaders used our tech to hide these too, to make your people forget. You are not saviors. You are us. The squad recoiled. Corporal Wren slammed a fist into the wall. This is bullshit. We're nothing like them. But his voice wavered. Mara stared at the blank slate. Activating it here wouldn't just expose the Cathari. It would unearth humanity's buried crimes. A galactic reckoning. Command hadn't told her. They'd made her a pawn. A villain. Static crackled on her comms. Sergeant, status report. Detonate the device. Now. She hesitated. The scientist met her gaze. Do it. Let them see. Let them all see. Outside, artillery boomed. The Cathari were regrouping, their fractured minds still reeling from the first pulse. Mara's squad watched her, waiting. She weighed the device, the lies of 2 species clutched in her palm. Then she made her choice. The pulse erupted, not from the blank slate, but from Mara's rifle, blasting the station's central node. The holograms died. The organic cables withered. The scientist wailed as centuries of curated history dissolved into smoke. What did you do?" Rook whispered. Mara turned away. "What they wanted. What we had too." She opened a channel to command, voice steel. Mission failed. The stations destroyed. The blank slate malfunctioned. A lie, but one that would hold. For now. As they retreated, the Cathari scientist called after her, its voice broken. "You could have ended it. Why spare us?" Mara didn't answer. She already knew. Some truths were too terrible to survive the light. Let the Cathari bear their guilt. Let humanity keep its myths. Because in the dark between stars, there were no heroes, only survivors, clinging to whatever stories let them sleep. The galaxy never learned the truth. The Cathari withdrew, too shamed to admit their crimes. Humanity hailed the 117th Legion as heroes, their victory proof of our ingenuity. The blank slate was retired, its blueprints burned. But in the quiet, Mara wondered, how many other lies were buried? How many wars would be fought to keep them that way? Years later, on a nameless moon, a Cathari child found a human relic, a rusted Voyager probe half buried in dust. Its golden record, though scratched, still played. Beethoven's Ode to Joy echoed across the wastes, a hymn older than hate. The child didn't understand the music, but it wept all the same. And so, the war ended, not with truth, but with silence. Humanity's darkest weapon became a footnote, and the galaxy moved on. But what do you think, travelers? Was Mara right to bury the past? Or is some pain worth enduring if it stops history from repeating? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through the shadows of memory and war, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts.